Welcome, Matt Blackburn, CEO of Mito Health, and guy we need to know about. So, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's actually Chief CEM, Chief Operating or COM, Chief Operating Mitochondriac.
Okay, I love it. Yeah, great.
Yep.
Well, that's probably a good place to start. Tell us what a mitochondriac is.
Yeah. So first, thanks for having me. And a mitochondriac is just someone that's interested in mitochondrial health. Mitochondria, it's kind of a fad thing, a little bit in the biohacking community right now. Dave Asprey of Bulletproof just wrote his book Headstrong about the mitochondria for the most part. But it's more than a fad when we actually realize how important these things are. What excites me about they're little microstar electromagnetic batteries, and there's hundreds to thousands in every one of our cells in our body. So we have 100 trillion cells, right? But within every cell, depending on which tissue, which organ and gland, there's more or less of these little batteries that literally generate an electromagnetic field. And that's where the electromagnetic field of our cells comes from, is from these little like slug looking things. And so we're finding that mitochondrial dysfunction, when these guys aren't working, when they can't generate ATP, that's actually the source of a lot of diseases, a lot of chronic diseases. I actually heard a stat, most people over 40, it's like 60 to 80% of people over the age of 40 have mitochondrial dysfunction, like a chronic mitochondrial dysfunction. And it's actually not that hard to get these guys working. It's just these few key things, which I know you're aware of being into quantum health.
Yeah, we'll definitely get into that a little bit later. I would like to hear your story and how you arrived here. I mean, I'm sure that was a long, many stepped journey to get to this point, but we connected through the BioWell device. That's where we connected, and then you told me about your product, and I was like, what? What's going on? I love it. And we had the Dr. Jack Cruz connection as well. So give us your background.
Cool. Yeah. So just to summarize, I began this health journey actually through watching documentaries. 5 years of kind of researching energy, and that led me in 2010 to discovering health. And I started juicing. I started making fresh vegetable juices at home. And within 2 to 3 weeks, it felt like I was coming off of drugs. It was like, whoa, like I didn't even know I had that intensive brain fog. And it was like this thing just lifted. And I've been addicted to that feeling ever since. I've actually been, for the last 7 years, digging deeper and deeper and deeper, where I'm just lifting these layers of just these filters that stop me from seeing reality, I guess is one way to say it. It's kind of beyond words. It's really hard to describe, but one word would be clarity. And I'm really into clarity and maximizing that. And we can do that physically, we could do that emotionally, spiritually, different ways of doing it. I like hitting it from all angles, but I usually, maybe it's because I'm a man, I come at it from the most fundamental and move up. Whereas some people kind of start with the emotional work and traumas and stuff, which completely works. That is really legitimate. Emotional traumas can cause physical ailments, especially cancer and chronic ailments. But actually just getting naked out in the sun and doing some of these practices we'll talk about literally can be a catalyst for bringing up these emotional traumas. Like I was bullied growing up. So I have a lot of anger, or did have a lot of anger, and now is stored in my liver. And the liver has over 500 functions. And it's a hardcore organ that we need. So, so getting back to my story, I started juicing. Got addicted to the clarity. I was vegan for 3 years, and I was like a raw food vegan. So I was doing about 80% raw foods for 3 years, and I was 100% raw for a month. Actually, that was pretty fun. Or actually 3 months. Yeah, I didn't eat any cooked foods for 3 months. And then I was following a lot of teachers. Like I followed, I mean, David Wolf, Gabriel Cousins, Robert Cassar, Daniel Vitalis, the Rob Raws, just on and on, like YouTube University. That's kind of where I started my
Hmm.
studies. And it's actually legitimate as long as you experiment. And that's the thing. What I started to realize and see in people is that people would follow these gurus and channels, but then just get caught in that paradigm for years and years and years. And that's where we get sick. But if we can actually like take a little bit and then just integrate everything and see what works for us and viscerally feel it, that's where I'm at. So for the last 7 years, I've been experimenting with everything I've learned. So I've gone down the cleansing path. I've done coffee enemas every day for 6 months. I ate seafood every day for 6 months. I was doing like salmon 5 days a week and maybe 2 or 3 dozen oysters a week for 6 months. I've gone hard. I've done some hardcore experiments. Raw goat's milk, a half gallon a day. I've probably done about a year of that. Where I hand harvest it. And yeah, I'm really into just finding out finding out the truth. And I believe there is an objective truth because in the spiritual community, you often hear there's no such thing as, it's all subjective. It's all whatever you make it. The truth could be whatever. That's I don't know. It doesn't really feel good to me. I think there is a truth that we have acid rain raining down on our soil, and there's a truth that acid rain displaces iron and aluminum in the soil. So we have excess iron and aluminum in the plants. And there's a truth that the oceans are more acidic now, and that the animals are more full of parasites. And there are a lot of truths. So it's we can uncover these, and a lot of it comes from being clear up here, and a lot of this stuff can finally start to make sense.
Now, that
So
initial moment where you started juicing, was that was that just kind of a step-by-step organic process, or was there a health issue going on that led you to begin that journey?
yeah, that's an awesome question. So I was a cheese and breaditarian for that 5 years when I was vegetarian. So I saw that PETA video by Alec Baldwin, Meet Your Meat, and I went vegetarian overnight. And all my friends made fun of me. I didn't know anyone. My mom was my only support because she kind of got me into the whole journey. And I was an unhealthy vegetarian. I was doing it just for the animals. And I'm still super compassionate towards animals. I haven't eaten tortured animals in like 13 years. I don't believe in that. I'll literally fast if all that's available is tortured animals. I don't think that energy is good to put in our being. But I had acne and brominated, uh, genetically modified, hybridized bread, and homogenized, pasteurized dairy is one of the worst things we could do for our lymphatic system. And what's worse than that is I was actually raised on candy. So Red Vine, Sour Patch Kids, you name it, all the most
Yeah.
sugary garbage.
Sour Patch Kids, that was my jam back in the day.
That was my number one, man. Yep. I knew you were a brother. So, but there's better stuff than that too. I mean, honey to me is like the best sugar in the world. That stuff is raw honeys. But yeah, so I probably had this underlying fungal candida thing going on. And then when I went vegetarian and I was eating Subway and Quiznos and all these cheese sandwiches multiple times a week, I was just feeding that. And I'm still working on cleaning up my skin. That's a deep journey, very deep. And so, yeah, I started the juicing mainly because I saw a YouTube video about it, which is what spurred me on to make a YouTube channel. Because I was like, man, I've been watching so many YouTube videos that have really inspired me to make changes in my life. And those changes have profoundly affected my state of consciousness. So, what if I make my own channel? And what if I could do that to just one person? And so I have a YouTube channel, Divine Superconductor TV. Some of my videos have like 30,000 views. I think my viral ones are my coffee enema video and my turpentine video. And I've inspired a lot of people to just experiment. That's the key, just trying things and being your own doctor. One of my friends, Sal, that worked with Dr. Jack Cruz, he was saying make a log of when you wake up. And you could find out when your optimal time of waking up is, just rate on a scale of 1 to 10 different every morning when you wake up and how you feel. And then you can kind of find your ideal time of when you would wake up, feel your best. I've gotten one blood test so far from Inside Tracker as a part of the Quantlet deal.
Yeah.
So they measured 15 biomarkers, and yeah, that was a great test. It was really cool for me to see my highly sensitive CRP was through the roof, HSCRP, which sign of stress, could be a sign of a lot of things, excess EMF. But my testosterone was really through the roof, like almost 1300. I was like, awesome. Like the nettle root's working, and, the sun and all that is working. I guess you could say like my quantification method is the people around me, and I use them as mirrors to see where I'm at. I have really close friends I can tell anything to, and just very transparent relationships. I feel like that's a great quantification method in itself, because
It is.
they reflect a lot.
And what you're and kind of what maybe you're alluding to is sort of calibrating our intuition to what objective data can actually, because that's eventually where we all need to be, is we have self-awareness, right? We have self-awareness, and we can use our intuitive abilities to help us make decisions and move through life instead of being tied to technology, dependent upon it. It should be a tool, a supplement, a tool to help.
Yes. Yeah, that was so well said. Yeah. And like you mentioned before, we met at the BioWell class. There's this gas discharge visualization camera, which can literally measure the biophotons coming off your fingertips, and then it maps it to TCM meridians, traditional Chinese medicine, and it can tell your state of charge in joules and how much UV and IR light, ultraviolet and infrared light, we're storing. That, to me, this device, this is a diagnostic tool that uses our biophotons that we're emitting to tell the state of our organs, glands, and just ability to hold on to electrons and light. I think that is the ultimate quantification tool, and I'm waiting for mine to come back from repair. So once I get that back, I'm going to do a lot more experiments. I bought it used, and I think someone dropped it or something, so I just send it in.
Well, good luck with that.
Yeah,
it's
I think
a
that
great tool.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that thing is just super advanced. I think way beyond its time for sure.
So you have been heavily focused on food, and food being your source of life, basically. Has that changed? Is that still sort of the centerpiece of what you use for a practice of optimization?
That's a great question. Definitely not. Yeah. So I discovered the neurosurgeon, Dr. Jack Kruse, about 2 years ago through Dave Asprey, Bulletproof. He interviewed him. Again, we're back to YouTube. And I found him, and I started studying his work and reading his blogs. And his whole message is essentially, it's not all about food and exercise. It's about light, water, and magnetism. In a nutshell, that's his entire work. And I know you resonate with a lot of that. And that's where I'm at now. So my focus is to get 2/3 of my electrons from the sun and the earth, and 1/3 from food. So lately, what I've been eating, I'm kind of like space age. You can see aluminum foil behind me. I live in a little biohacked kind of RV. So I have a UVA light on me right now, and I have the vent open. So I'm having light coming in, and it's reflecting all around me. So even though I'm wearing this tank top just for, what can you call it, to be respectful to the audience, because I would rather be shirtless. I'm still getting photons through my eyes and a little bit on my skin. So that's electrons, because riding every photon is an electron. So yeah, definitely not focused on food. I would say on average, I eat 1 meal a day. Some of my favorite foods: royal jelly, bee pollen, honey. Bee bread is one of my staples. So I'll ferment bee pollen and raw honey. And that's just, whoa, I could live on that stuff.
So are we talking about like a mead? It's not mead.
It's not mead. I actually have some right here. I could just show you. Yeah, it's kind of like, I don't know if it's light enough to see. So I just pretty much just fill this with honey and then put bee pollen in there. And what happens is it ferments. And this is what the bees do. The bees actually ferment bee pollen. And that is how they unlock the cell wall in the pollen, because the protein's locked. So, yeah, and royal jelly is just 100% pretty much bioavailable protein. That's amazing stuff. And that boosts brain-derived nootropic factor, and has acetylcholine. It's the only food in the world that has that, and it's packed with B vitamins. So I'm a huge fan of bee products. I think we could literally live on bee products and maybe a little bit of raw dairy, like raw goat's milk, and we would get all the nutrition we need. And I also do just a lot of supplementation. What else? Yeah, I make a lot of elixirs. So I'm really into medicinal mushrooms. So I have chaga and reishi tea going all the time. And I'll mix in some grass-fed ghee and some coconut oil extract, and some type of sweetener, whether it be maple syrup or Jerusalem artichoke root. I make my own chocolate. Just kind of like, just eat a little here and there, but I'm really into like really powerful, really pure ingredients. And that's what I focus on. And I find that if we do that, we have to eat less. And then you stack that with getting sunlight and grounding all the time. And we're really talking about decreasing our caloric intake, but maintaining our energy and getting to this extreme level of anti-aging where we're pretty much reverse aging at that point. Because the more food we eat, the more we age, the more our body has to work. And
I love it. So would you consider yourself raw now, or what percentage, raw vegan or raw? How do you define your dietary lifestyle?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say I'm mostly raw vegetarian. I've gone back and forth the last, 4 years, vegetarian and paleo. I was eating meat, grass-fed beef every day for a while. I've done so many experiments, and I like that lightness feeling, and also that energetic lightness feeling. One of my teachers, Dr. Gabriel Cousins at the Tree of Life in Arizona, he thinks that animal products are like a sludge to the Kundalini, and the Kundalini is that snake-like energy that slithers up the chakras, upward, spirals up. I don't like to get too dogmatic, because I feel that we all have our own individual journey, and sometimes there's I think it's deeper than just like taking the life of an animal. I mean, as the BioWell shows, before I ate an apple once, I put a sliver of the apple that I cut in the BioWell camera, and its stress level was almost a 10 out of 10. And so The Secret Life of Plants, there was a book on it, there's a documentary on it. Plants are just as conscious as animals. So I totally dropped the dogma as far as eating animals. The parasite thing and the toxicity thing is another issue completely. But yeah, just to summarize, I would say mostly raw vegetarian because I feel the best. I love pastured eggs. I love raw dairy, mostly raw milk. And ghee is my favorite. Like if I just had to pick one animal product to eat for the rest of my life, it would be grass-fed ghee. And I would thrive on that. Yeah.
Well, let's get to your company. Give us the introduction.
Yeah. Yeah. So Mitolife was birthed from my studies on the mitochondria and mitochondrial health. So this will be a product line that is focused on improving mitochondrial function. And I discovered this through my friend that sent me a link, and he was like, hey, just check out this DHA, and Gabriel Cousins recommended it. And it's just a specific type of algae. And I started taking it, and I was like, wow, I just feel like amazing, and this is when I was eating seafood. And so I've been taking my own product for about 9 months now. And I've actually done experiments, long stretches without eating any fish or oysters, and just taking my DHA and seeing if it could be a replacement for seafood. And my personal experience is that yes, it can, and that my brain still felt amazing from it. So, so I befriended this doctor that formulated it, and then I worked with him to upgrade the formula. So recently, actually, we removed the sunflower oil and that bumped it from 36% to 50% DHA. And that's the limit. That's actually as high as you can go with this algae. So it's this algae called Schizochytrium, and that's the species of algae. And we kind of joke and call it schizophrenic algae. But it's Schizochytrium, and it's in the family called Chromista. And Chromista, kelp is a part of that family. And Chromista forms the basis of the food chain of the entire planet. So that's profound just to think about energetically wise. You're putting something in your body with that. And Schizochytrium is at least 50% DHA. It's this algae. And what we do is we take the algae and we crack the cell wall similar to how chlorella is cracked, or pine pollen. A lot of these times with these nutrients, these plant-based nutrients, we have to unlock the nutrition within. So with this algae, we crack the cell wall using water, which is super advanced. Most of those algae, especially of this one, like if you go to the health food store and you find Schizochytrium, vegan DHA algae, you say, oh, cool, Schizochytrium. That's what Matt was talking about. But there's a difference. That was made with biotechnology. So these companies are only in it for profit. So they cut corners with quality and processing. The integrity goes way down. It's the way that they extract it. Usually they use toxic solvents like hexane, methane, or alcohol. And also they collect it wild from the ocean, which sounds good. But then we realize that the ocean's full of synthetic chemicals and heavy metals and mercury and plasticizers and radiation from all these nuclear meltdowns. So this algae that I sell is made in enclosed tanks indoors. So it's completely separated from the pollution cycle of the planet. So that's really profound. So it's ultra pure. Whereas if you buy like a fish oil, they're molecularly distilled. So they get these fish from the ocean and they're full of parasites and heavy metals and radiation, and they cook them and then they make them into like a mush. And then they take the oil and they have to distill. Like I have a water distiller. They literally distill it into an oil and separate the two. They're like burning off like a nuclear waste, and they're cleaning it like that, cleaning it. Yeah, they could probably clean it to a certain degree, but what's cool about Mitolife is that it starts pure, and then we even clean it more after that. So it starts pure, and then it's like ultra pure at the end. So it's really exciting to just have a really clean source of DHA, because when we eat seafood, we just have to realize that we're getting a lot of toxins. I have a little protocol now when if I do go out for seafood, which like last night is my dad's birthday, we went to this place called Joe's Crab Shack, and I was eating a salmon fillet, and I was picking it apart, and I'm not like neurotic. I don't mind if I'm eating some parasites, but I started to see some like little long slithery things in there. It's like, huh. So I kind of just like put it apart, and I actually took a picture and put this on my Snapchat. There were literal worms all throughout my salmon. I was like, wow, I'm still going to eat it. Just eat around them a little bit if I can. But I was like, wow. And the reason for these parasites is the ocean is very acidic, overly acidic, because of the acid rain and the pollution. So whatever animal we eat, it's going to have an unnaturally high parasite load. So we have options, right? The vegans are super scared of parasites, but if you ever kiss a cat or a dog, you're going to get, it's like, they're really hard to avoid. So my advice would just be for those people who are eating seafood, just be really on the parasite cleanse and be really aware of it. At least 2 to 3 times a year, do a very heavy colon cleansing parasite herb protocol, because hands down, you do have like a fish tapeworm if you're eating seafood consistently. So one of the benefits of my product is if you take, let's say, nascent iodine, which is a liquid atomic iodine, and then maybe you take a selenium supplement, because seafood has iron, selenium, zinc, copper, and DHA is the most important one. But yeah, there's a balance. Like we have to have all the nutrients, obviously, but from my research, everyone's deficient in magnesium, everyone's deficient in DHA, vegan or not. And I take supplements as if I were vegan. So I still supplement carnosine, which quadruples the lifespan of my red blood cells to 426 days from 6 weeks. So there's, and I still take retinol palmitate, which is a super absorbable form of vitamin A. So there's a little like key things. I have a lot of fun with like the chemistry biohacks. I'm a super hardcore biohacker. So I did a 55-degree cold soak before this interview, and I took 1,400 milligrams of methylene blue, and I did a shot of liquid chlorophyll. So I had a photosynthesizer. I was nude sunbathing. And my third cytochrome, my mitochondria, cytochrome C, with the chlorophyll, was able to take more of those electrons in. And I megadosed my DHA. It probably took 2,000 milligrams. So yeah, it's taking these supplements, but then using the protocols.
Yeah. Well, so there may be some people thinking, well, yeah, I think I know what DHA is. It's like part of that omega-3 complex, right? That my doctor's telling me I need to take. I don't know why. And maybe the doctor doesn't know why they're saying that. But what is the role of DHA? Why is it important? And explain that, please.
Awesome question. So docosahexaenoic acid is a polyunsaturated fatty acid, and it's an omega-3 fatty acid. So there's different omega-3s. There's DHA, and there's EPA, and there's ALA, alpha-linolenic acid, and different ones. And there's also omega-6s, there's omega-7s, there's even omega-9s. Of concern to this conversation is omega-3s, and there's within our cell membranes, within our mitochondrial membranes, within the cells, the walls are literally made of DHA. 50%, well, about 48 to 50% DHA, and then arachidonic acid, which is omega-6. So it's kind of like a battery. Think about like DHA is like a negative side, and then arachidonic acid, omega-6, is like a positive. It's like a Duracell battery. And so in between, current can flow. And that's how voltage and electricity is generated in our cell and in our mitochondria. So it's critical for our body to make an electric charge, which sounds super like woo-woo if people don't know too much about that. I would recommend looking into Michael Crawford's work. He has a TED Talk where he talks about the quantum implications of DHA. So DHA is a 600 million year old lipid that came to the planet and allowed mammals to actually utilize the most powerful part of light, which is ultraviolet light. So it's a bridge, and this compound, this 22 carbon compound molecule with 6 double bonds, it's like a chain. So just imagine, like, for whoever took chemistry class, C, 22 C's. And then there's 6 double bonds. So there's like equal signs, right? And those double bonds form like pits to where electrons can fall into. And when electrons fill those pits, it's like hungry. It's like an electron collector, and it's an electron collector built by nature. So when we're out naked in the sun, when we're barefoot, when we're wearing conductive shoes, like earth runners, we're getting electrons coming into our body. And the more DHA we have in our body, the more electrons we could actually collect, because they fall into those double bonds. And when they do that, it literally creates like a copper wire, like a superconductive copper wire. So that is where the true power of DHA is. Mainstream wise, DHA is known to be good for the retina, for the eyes, eye health, heart health, and brain health. Those are the places where it's the most concentrated in the body. It's also in a man's testes, actually, in a woman's ovaries. It's very concentrated there as well. And why? Because these areas of the body generate huge magnetic fields, right? They're like the hardcore, very energy intensive parts of the body: the eyes, the brain, the heart, and the reproductive area. So yeah, DHA is only found in seafood. I work with a lot of vegans and vegetarians. I have a huge network of friends. Those lifestyles can totally work, but the number one thing that is missing in them, because it's only found in fish and oysters and seafood, is DHA. And when DHA is not present in tissues, inflammation results. Inflammation is positively charged protons. At 1400, I have a study on my website. 1400 milligrams of DHA a day for 3 months builds the levels in the blood, and that completely balances triglyceride levels. So if someone's HDL and LDL is off, just 3 months of 1400 milligrams a day balances that. Anything over 1000 milligrams a day enacts neurogenesis by 40% with DHA. So, which is really exciting for my supplement, because just one dose a day boosts the creation of new neurons by 40%. That's really exciting to me.
So
yeah, it's so exciting.
This is a great, this is a much more than an overview, which I really appreciate. And I think people do as well, because people are listening to this are all about learning. Now, there's another distinction that makes your DHA unique, which is the SN2 position. And this is something that very few people know about. Talk about this if you can.
Yeah, so this is for the hardcore mitochondriacs that have been studying DHA for a while, and they understand that there's different positions, different forms of it. So if I can just back up for a second and for some context, and think about minerals. So you go to the health food store and you look at magnesium, and you see calm, it's magnesium citrate. You see Epsom salt baths, that's magnesium sulfate. You see magnesium glycinate. You see just on and on and on. There's over 30 different forms of magnesium that you can buy as a supplement. And what makes these forms different is the structure, how they're organized, the bond angles, etc. So, and they each have different benefits for the most part. And so with DHA, or with a fatty acid, there's something called the glycerol backbone. And this backbone has different positions, and it has the SN1 position, the SN2 position, or the SN3 position. And a lot of the DHA supplements on the market are in the wrong position. Schizochytrium, I have the research on my website to show this. On the bottom of my science page, it says, it's a PubMed study that says a novel algae, Schizochytrium, that contains DHA in the SN2 position. And so this specific algae is in this SN2 position. It needs to be in that position to actually have this magnetic quality, to actually be pulled into our cell membranes, into the mitochondrial membranes, to be what's called paramagnetic. It needs to be in this position. So that's pretty much what it is there.
Do you happen to know
also the way that it's?
Do you happen to know? This is not something I see advertised. If you go to Whole Foods and you look at the DHA supplements there, you're not going to see anything about what molecular position the DHA is in. Do you happen to know what percentage of products on the market are in SN2?
I do. Yeah. It's around 30%, 30 to 35%. So I believe with one serving of my DHA, that comes out to about, I think it's like 300 milligrams. And that's pretty high. That's the highest it can go. And that's still a megadose. That's still a lot. But this algae, Schizochytrium, is in itself 50% DHA. So all we do is we crack the cell wall, we extract the oil from inside the algae, and that oil itself is 50% DHA. So this is like super concentrate. And then we stabilize it with vitamin E to make sure it doesn't oxidize. So we did a 6-month stability test at 130 degrees and straight, and Mitolife DHA stayed stable. The peroxide count stayed low, like below 5. So usually people know DHA is extremely heat sensitive and light sensitive. With mine, I still recommend after you open it, put it in the fridge. Not only does it taste better cold, but cold water holds more electrons. So when you think about this is the best electron collector ever built, it's going to become more like magnetic, more conductive when something's colder. So I recommend to put it in the fridge anyway and bring it in a cooler. That's what I do. But yeah, we have a little bit of a trade-off here because I wrote my final paper for my bachelor's of science degree on ocean desertification, and there's like 6 reasons why the oceans are becoming a desert, and we have to face the fact. This is very depressing, but at one point, if we continue down this collective path, we're going to reach a point where we're not going to have any more fish, or a piece of salmon is going to cost like $100. Unless we have a mass awakening, which I'm holding the space for. But it's good to have these insurance policies and to kind of let go and realize that we can use supplementation intelligently, that it can actually improve our lives. I was in the rewilding community for a while. Let's get back to our hunting roots, our foraging roots. And it's like, no matter what, like, we're not human anymore. We're really not. We've been genetically modified. And that's a hard truth to realize, but we don't know how to make our own shelter. We don't know how to hunt. We don't know how to identify plants. We're not human anymore.
Let's talk about your favorite sort of lifestyle practices for health optimization. Before we get into this, your favorite supplements and food and the other supplementary things, right? So talk about your favorite practices.
Awesome. Yeah. So light water magnetism, essentially. So drinking really good water, stage filter. I've done experiments with water. I always start with water. This is my number one. This is way, way more important than food. Way more important. When anyone's getting off standard American, kind of getting out of the matrix a little bit, straight to water. That's the number one. Because 71% of our body is water, but 93% of our blood plasma is made of water. And water absorbs light. It stores light. So that is critical for building our battery, along with DHA. So I have a 6-stage filter. It takes out all the acids and brings it down to about 40 parts per million. That's the total dissolved solid. I test that with a meter. And then I add back in ionic fulvic minerals. So I'm a big fan of Omega Organics. I can give you a link for their website. I've been promoting them for a couple of years now, and they have the best shower filter I've found on the market. A lot of really high-end products, Ayurvedic kind of focused. So they have the best Shilajit I've ever tried, turmeric, zeolites, things like that. Amla, holy basil, ashwagandha, etc. So I add back in their minerals, which is pretty much Shilajit minerals. So it's 84 organic minerals, which are really actually hard to get now because of acid rain. So I put that in my water, and it brings it down to a neutral pH. So it goes from like a 9 to probably around a little over a 7. And yeah, and I love that water. And I have a whole little routine. I have copper Moscow Mule cups. Every morning I'll fill it with that. I'll put ice in there, and I'll put it on my 10 Gauss Magnetico that I sleep on. And I'll leave them on there usually all day long. And that strong magnetic field will actually energize the hydrogen bonds in the water. And if I want to go all out, sometimes I make magnesium bicarbonate. I sell a video on how to make that for $15. And it's the best form of magnesium I found because it takes stress off the pancreas, because the pancreas buffers the pH of the body. And a lot of us are bicarbonate deficient. And when that happens, the pancreas can't maintain the pH of the tissues anymore. And so chronic metabolic acidosis is the result. Easy solution, magnesium bicarbonate. And a side benefit is that the magnesium actually gets in the mitochondria with this specific form, which is the key. And so I'll add that to it, and that makes it super conductive. So That's the water aspect. So I drink out of a Myron glass too. Myron glass only allows in ultraviolet and infrared light, and it blocks the rest, all the visible spectrum. And supposedly the Egyptians stored everything in copper and violet glass. That's what it is. It's like purple glass.
Hmm.
And it actually energizes the ingredients. And I'm a big fan of Dr. Gerald Pollack, because I'm sure you are as well. He wrote a book called The Fourth Phase of Water. And there's different ways to structure water to create this exclusion zone, a way for the water to store a charge, an electric charge. And there's three things that do it. There's cold, there's light, and there's ultrasound. And so by putting my water in this bottle, I'll put it outside, and the infrared light going in and hitting the water, there's some research to suggest that I'm actually making exclusion zone water in that glass. And that just means that when I drink that water, my body's going to be like, whoa, I recognize this, and more of it gets assimilated. Because we've all had the experience where we're out traveling or whatever, and we buy this garbage bottled water in plastic at the store, and we drink it and we just pee it all out immediately. Our body's like, what is this stuff? So I've been studying water for the last 7 years, and I've done, again, experiments, well water, spring water. I've literally year-long experiments of gathering water in glass, 50 gallons at a time, and that's all I drank. And so that's water is the key to start with. And then the magnetism part is my cold bath. So that'd be the second practice I recommend after switching out your water. Spring water, I think, unless you're getting it tested and you know which minerals are in it, is not necessarily a good choice. There can be fracking. There's a map you can look up on Google where you could see the fracking around. Because if you're drinking spring water and there's fracking chemicals that have ended up in those aquifers, then you're drinking those chemicals, and that's not good over time. There's also some wells and springs that are high in certain minerals like lithium, and lithium can make us crazy over time. So the good thing about making your own water at home, although it's not completely natural, at least you know what's in it, and you can add the minerals in it so you know exactly what's going into it. With the magnetism part, just a cold bath. I started with a 100-gallon tractor tub. It was like $100, and I filled it with filtered water. I think it was about 50 gallons, like about half full, because when I go in there, I'm going to displace some of it. And then I used to get I think it was I would get 7-pound bags of ice. So that's 42 pounds of ice every time. And I used to dump that in the water, and that would cost me about $12 a time each session. And I did that for about a month or two, about a month and a half. And then after spending $150 on ice, I started researching more sustainable ways to do it. And I found through one of the guys I followed, the Rob Ross and JP Sears and some other guys, the commercial chest freezer method. So, like a meat storage or where, ice cream box when you go into a store and you open it up, the lid flings open. So I bought one of those on Craigslist for a little under a couple $100. And it's a 4 feet long freezer. And so I filled that with water, and you plug it in, and that cools the water for me. And I turn it off and unplug it when I'm in there. Although I'm sure I could probably take the electricity if something did happen. I have enough DHA, who knows? But so what I do is I ground the water with a silver rod, and then I go in there naked for 20 to 30 minutes. And my goal is to have the water at 55 degrees, because the research shows that at 57.4 degrees, there's a 250% increase in dopamine. And I think norepinephrine and epinephrine goes up over 500%. But the key is that dopamine. And literally, I get a high. Like I did one, I think it was a few hours ago now. Usually the high will start about 3 to 4 hours later, and it'll feel like this tingling that starts in the front of my brain, and then it kind of moves backwards. So the most powerful practice besides changing my water was these cold baths. They're just profound, like just Oh, geez, I can't even describe. I've had spiritual and emotional breakthroughs from these cold baths, and I've only been doing them for about 3 months.
Mm.
So I can't wait to see what happens when I keep doing them. Um, and the third one is sauna therapy. And so light therapy, I built my own sauna using 4 250-watt heat lamps, like chicken lights. And I used Dr. Wilson's article on this. I'm still looking for more concrete evidence, but from my experiential research, when I first set this up, pretty much I went to Home Depot, I sat on the ground, measured myself, and just built a PVC frame, just like kind of like Legos, just kind of like put them together. I didn't even use glue. And I made this frame, and then I got painter's canvas. And so I threw that over the top, and I got the 4 infrared lights, and I mounted those to a wooden board. And so what I do is I sit in there on a towel, and I just turn like a rotisserie chicken. And so I get my front, my sides, and my back. And I used a far infrared sauna for years. I used the Therasage one. It's like the zip up ones that you could sit in. Usually people's head are out of it, like sticking out. But I just sat in the whole thing, closed the lid. And that's a far infrared. And these lights are near infrared. So the infrared light charges our mitochondria. And when those mitochondria can work better, and electron chain transport's working better, and they're actually making more ATP, that's what regenerates our entire body. So that's light is the most powerful healer for that reason, because we're enhancing the function of these little guys in the cells, in the tissues of the organ or gland we're having issues with. So they've done studies with people with thyroid problems. Just a couple days a week of just like 3 minutes of infrared light on the thyroid helps to balance it. So there's all these little, and there's actually evidence to suggest with the eyes, the infrared light heals the eyes. I have a UVA light that I put underneath, and I have a grow light for growing plants underneath. And so if it's like a gloomy day and say it's raining here, which is kind of rare in San Diego, but we have them. Sometimes it's like gloomy for a few days or a week. That'll be my morning or afternoon sun. I'll go in there and I'll switch those lights on. So yeah, light therapy, it gets a little complicated with the timing. Because at night, we just want red, infrared, and orange, and UV, as long as there's not blue. Because I have a UV light hitting me right now because I'm not wearing blue blockers with you, even though I have my, flux kind of iris, changes the color temperature of the screen. So the timing with lights is key. So, but if you're just doing it for sauna therapy, which is one whole benefit, which is the main benefit, which I use, I go in the sauna and I'm sweating, my pores are opening, and I'm releasing fat-soluble toxins. Radioactive isotopes are actually coming out. A lot of the pollution in our world, over 100,000 chemicals in our environment, synthetic, those get stored in the adipose tissue. And so the sauna is one of our best things actually to prevent the feminization of the male. Because every time you go to the store and you touch that receipt paper, you're getting plastic directly in your skin. Your skin's acidic. That's alkaline, goes right in. And that disrupts the endocrine system. And when the endocrine system for men is disrupted, that means lower testosterone and higher estrogen. That means men turning into women. And we see that happening before our eyes, and women turning into men as well. And so the sauna is a way to kind of just all these things, light, water, magnetism. We have this blueprint, this energetic blueprint. And by reconnecting with nature, we're providing our body the materials, the building materials, to get closer to that blueprint and to kind of build what we're supposed to, like the ideal,
Love that. And so give us now your 5 top supplements / foods.
Okay. Well, my first one. So, and that's, I'm not biased because I was taking it before I was even considering selling it. So that's the Mitolife DHA. That's number one for sure. I megadose that myself. I really do feel the difference in my brain from taking that. So the DHA is number one. Actually have a few of them here. I could show you. No particular order. Nascent iodine would be another one. And this, I have a lot of really smart vegan friends. You know, when you're vegan, you really have to supplement your B vitamins, all that stuff, liposomal B vitamins, etc. So I've come across some really advanced supplements because of these people. Super grateful for that. And this is from a company called Enviromedica. And in the periodic table, there's the halogen family. And there's chlorine, bromine, fluorine, and iodine. And iodine is the halogen that we have in our body in large amounts. And when we have large amounts of fluoride, chlorine, or bromine, that's not good. And that dysregulates, that throws off the body. And where are those in our environment? Even if you have a shower filter like I do, the Omica filter, which is very, very good. It has zeolites, it has charcoal, shungite. It does a lot of things that pull toxins out. I'm still getting trace amounts of these halogens. And whenever I wash my hands, especially if I'm out and about, there's no way essentially to avoid these halogens in our environment. So when you take some of this, I take like an average, maybe a half dropper a day. I started off with 6 droppers. You got to be careful. This will actually push out the fluoride, the bromine, the chlorine, because it's like the head, it's like a basketball, and those other halogens are like a softball, baseball, so, or a golf ball actually. It's much like, it's heavier, and so this is great, and it's especially great if someone's a vegan or a vegetarian in tandem with DHA. This will super turn the brain on. Iodine is the most important mineral for the brain, and of course a lot of people know for thyroid function. But for a lot of different tissues, not just the thyroid. And iodine and iodide work different in different tissues of the body. So, DHA, iodine. Another one that actually became my favorite recently, this is the third, is DNA detox. And this is from my friends, the Jing Slingers, Jay and Joy Coelho. They make like vegan, paleo, vegetarian, raw dishes. They work with celebrities a lot. Really smart people. Jay worked at Erewhon as a tonic at the tonic bar for like something crazy, 15 or 20 years. Super smart guy, good friend of mine. And they released their first product, which is this DNA detox. It says mitochondrial support, aqueous zeolite solution. And I've been taking zeolites because I've been studying heavy metals pretty much since I started this journey. Because aluminum, mercury, lead, cadmium, arsenic, thallium, stainless steel, just on and on. We have so many metals we're like swimming in. Like I live in the city here and I drive a lot. And so I'm breathing in these volatilized metals from gasoline burning. So it's another thing, unless we're living in a pristine environment, we need a strategy for heavy metals, not to mention our food. So this is powerful because I guess this is based off research where a scientist actually figured out how to make it so small in the Dalton size so it could actually cross into the mitochondrial membrane. I believe for something to cross into the mitochondrial membrane, it has to be smaller than 10,000 Daltons. And this is like very, 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 like almost quantum small, right? And this is actually anywhere between 500 and 5,000 Daltons. So this can actually get into the mitochondria and act as a constant detox there. And so when you consider zeolites even work with glyphosate, there's some evidence to suggest that, which displaces glycine, which is one of the major amino acids in our body, from bone broth. So there's so many little connection things. It's complicated, right? I just focus on, it's like, I run to a lot of people like, health is simple. On some level it is, especially the emotional health, just like let go and, keep moving these emotions through. But on the physical thing, it like so many booby traps that the light water magnetism thing is really rad because, you get in the sauna, you sweat. Okay. There you're getting rid of a lot of garbage. Maybe do some colon cleansing here and there, coffee enemas, get out naked in the sun, be barefoot, and you're improving your mitochondrial function, and things are actually able to excrete. So exclusion zone water, it excludes stuff. So without getting too far down other tangents, this is another major one. And I also take this stuff called C60, which I learned about from David Wolf, which is activated charcoal in a Buckminster fullerene structure. And that's suspended in olive oil, and that actually goes in the cell membrane. So I'm actually having I have charcoal in my body. I'm talking personally now. I have charcoal in my cell membrane, and I have this zeolites in my mitochondrial membranes. So I'm detoxing all the time at that level. So that's really exciting, and I think that is the way to go, because we don't have to like, okay, what herb? And it's like you take a billion things. No, just like focus on a few, and then we're covered. So that gets rid of a lot. We had the DHA, the iodine, the DNA detox. The other one I would recommend is, I think I have one here, is the magnesium. Here it is. So I used to make this and sell it. I don't really anymore. I teach people how to make it. And this is magnesium bicarbonate. And to me, this would probably be number 2 as far as priorities if we're talking about it. And I could even just tell you guys the basic idea of how you make it. And then if someone wants to actually learn, because there's some details, to check out my video. It's essentially a concentrated magnesium bicarbonate with traces of sodium, potassium, and calcium bicarbonate. And the bicarbonate ion is bound to these minerals. And when the bicarbonate is bound to these minerals, it acts as it's like a delivery system, and it actually drives the minerals into the mitochondria, but especially the magnesium. It pulls it in. So how I make this is I get carbonated water, critical to start with acid-free water, so you need a reverse osmosis system with a deionization cartridge, and that takes out all the acid rain. There's like 8 acids in our tap water. So if there's no acids in the water, you can make this alkaline solution, because if you try to make it in acid water, it's going to neutralize. And you mix in magnesium hydroxide. I use calcium carbonate, all food grade, and potassium carbonate. And then at the end, I add in sodium food grade bicarbonate. And I keep it refrigerated, and magnesium is a water soluble mineral. It activates over 3,000 enzymes in the body. At first, people used to say it was 825. If anyone's interested in deep diving into magnesium, Morley Robbins, Morley on YouTube, there's a lot of great videos. He's really into heavy metals too, and copper toxicity. So he's really fun to listen to kind of go down those rabbit holes. But magnesium is critical because it is actually it's actually how our cells generate voltage. It facilitates voltage-gated ion channels in the body, and especially when we have bicarbonate, and we have these we're more alkaline batteries, like our car is an acid battery. We're more alkaline. So if we're not alkaline, I'm not talking about the woo-woo vegan, raw vegan alkaline kind of thing, because alkalizing your blood is like that's kindergarten, nutrition. We're talking about alkalization at the cell and mitochondrial level, and that's what we're talking about. And we're talking about generating voltage, electricity, conducting electrons across that chain. So we need magnesium, and we need to be alkaline at that level to do that. And it's also important for brain function, because we have like 8 different forms of, it's a fact. So with calcium, you can look on mineral antagonists, and you'll see a circle, and you'll see a wheel, and all the minerals around, and all these lines connecting. So if you take one mineral in isolation, let's say you take a calcium supplement, you're depleting magnesium. If you take a copper supplement, you're depleting zinc, because they're connected. Potassium, same thing. You're displacing sodium, potassium. Sodium potassium hydrates. So there's basically 4 electrolyte salts. Some people say 5: sodium, potassium, calcium, magnesium, and chloride. And these electrolytes are often overlooked. And these electrolytes, electrons, electricity, electrolytes run the electric body. So we need electrolytes, right? This is beyond nutrition. This is like the key. This is like way more important than food. So drinking water with electrolytes is like, you're switching things on. And then you take some DHA, you push out some fluoride with the iodine, which is dielectric blocker. Fluoride is. All it is just like stacking, right? So my research shows that pretty much 99% across everyone's deficient in magnesium at the red blood cell level. Because you can test the magnesium in your blood and the doctor says, oh, you're good. 2 nanograms per deciliter. Nope, because you need to look inside the red blood cell. Because if your blood level drops in magnesium, you have a heart attack. So it needs to stay at a very specific, but it's in the red blood cell. And that's why this is magic. And this costs $2 to $3 to make and is the most easy. It's about $80 investment. One of the best things people can do for their health. This is way better than drinking a green smoothie, a green juice. I do bee pollen for all that. One tablespoon of bee pollen is equal to 6 to 8 pounds of fruits and vegetables as far as the phytonutrients. Bee pollen, way better for you, especially when it's fermented, and you don't get all the minerals.
I think we need to do a round 2 at some point. 'Cause we're a little bit over an hour right now, and my head is I'm starting to lose my capacity to absorb information. Love it, Matt. Thank you.
Thank you. It was a lot of fun to nerd out with you. I know you're super advanced. You've been experimenting like me for a while, so it's really fun to connect. And it was really synchronistic how we linked up, and I'm so glad we did. And I'm sure we'll be friends for a long time, and we'll help a lot of people with sharing this information. So
yeah, definitely.
Hopefully some people we talked about and feel better. Yeah.